Hey guys, wanted to make this quick video. I've had a few questions about the 3D printed vapor blast gun and why am I using that in my videos instead of a standard metal one. And it was a great question. I thought be a good opportunity to make a video on my thinking of why. And for me, starting with this vapor blast journey, I had no idea of the things that I was going to come across. And as I was building my system, I went with all the standard parts. I watched all the YouTube videos from Vapor Honing Technologies. That's what essentially got me interested in the whole thing. Then I came across Armory Enterprises. He's got a lot of great YouTube videos on vapor blasting, do-it-yourself vapor blast cabinets, and nozzles as well. So I decided to go ahead and build my setup using the standard eBay gun. So I started off with this one, purchased it for about 35 bucks online, and it works really well. It's got a 9mm opening at the tip. The tip is made out of boron, and it works great. Really did a great job. I enjoyed using it. The thing that you don't realize when you start putting together kits like this is if you're going to be vapor blasting for extended periods of time, small things start to become very important. And for me, these small things started to add up to the point that I decided to, hey, I need to make a huge improvement here because there's just a lot of annoying things about what's available. And really, there's no alternative. There was just nothing else out there that I could use that wasn't a similar setup to these type of guns. So for one thing, the eBay Vapor Blast nozzle comes with this ring here at the top. And I know why they have it. It's so you can hang it on something or you can bolt it to an automation machine. That way it can do the vapor blasting for you. But in my case, I'm a hobby mechanic with a small home shop. I don't need this. This for me is in my way. It makes it uncomfortable to grab. I could turn it around and then it's in the palm. Anyway, it's in my way. I was thinking about cutting it off and grinding it. And then, but there was other things about this that was annoying to me. I also don't like the fact that these hoses come off at these different angles. That what happens is as these spread out, they take up a lot of room inside the blast cabinet and they're unruly to deal with when you're in a confined space like a converted Harbor Freight cabinet. That was just another one of these little things that was bothering me. So I had a YouTube subscriber suggest that, hey man, why don't you try a 10mm tip on your eBay gun? And I thought, okay, well, cool. I went online, I started shopping for these things, and these things aren't cheap. I mean, you get into a larger 10mm tip, you're talking 20 bucks for a short one. If you want to experiment with the long ones, $45 easy. And as far as experimenting goes, I just didn't see the value in purchasing it if it wasn't going to maybe work out for me. So I decided to 3D print a insert that would go in a 3D printed collar. So I went ahead and made this. So I made this guy. So this one will accept this insert in here, which also can use the Harbor Freight ceramic inserts that come with the Harbor Freight sandblast kit. So those can insert in here, and I thought it was cool. All right, so I went ahead and did it, put it together, and it worked out really well. I used it for a couple of months, didn't notice any significant wearing or anything, and thought, hey, you know what? You could probably make a whole 3D printed gun out of this material. So I started to look further into the design of these things, and what I started to realize is, hey, these guys are putting rubber sleeves on these metal parts, and these parts are treated to resist rust. So okay, rubber sleeve on a metal part, that means the metal must wear because of the blast media. And sure enough, it does, because the blast media is passing all around this and coming through this. It's eventually going to wear it out. So to protect the anti-corrosive surface that they put on here, the rust preventive surface they put on here, they put a rubber sleeve on it. So they protect it with rubber and plastic. To me, it was starting to make more and more sense to just 3D print and design the whole gun out of plastic. So another thing that makes a big difference when you're vapor blasting for a long period of time is weight. So this blast nozzle, so the eBay blast nozzle comes in at 401 grams assembled. And that doesn't include the weight of the hoses or the clamps or anything else. So you're holding 401 grams in your hand for extended periods of time. And it could get very exhausting. Holding your hand up and moving your hand around with this 400 grams on the end of it, it gets pretty heavy. So weight reduction was another reason why. And then I got my Eastwood air pedal kit, and it came with this sandblast gun. And the feel of this sandblast gun in your hand is awesome. It feels really good. The shape of it is just right. But again, the problem is you got these two different entry angles for your media and your air. So guess what's going to be happening to me inside this tiny Harbor Freight cabin? I'm going to be battling with these hoses. So while this design is great for holding like this, it's not so good in the Harbor Freight Vapor Blast cabinet. Another thing too is, again, here's this hook again. I don't need this hook for my setup. So this particular gun comes in at 457 grams. And again, it doesn't include the weight of the hoses that are attached to it. So I mean, the handle's comfortable, but this will be exhausting to use for extended periods of time. So that was another reason. So now that brings us to the 3D printed vapor blast gun. So here we have the original version 3. I've been using this vapor blast gun here for 2.5 months, blasting 36 grit garnet for the majority of it. This is the same blast gun that I used to do the Brembo brake project, along with the valve covers that I've done recently. So all of it has been done with this vapor blast gun. And what I notice is after 2.5 months of use, so here's the air path. Air path is completely unfazed. You can still see a little bit of that filament from the initial print in there. So totally unfazed. The media path, same thing, unfazed. It's a little scuffed because it does come in and it does scratch up the surface, but it's not wearing it out at all because it comes in at very low pressure. Where the pressure does increase is on the tip itself. But as far as the gun body, the internals of the gun, the air orifice and everything else, completely unfazed. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing lasts me a year or two, because it just doesn't wear out. There's nothing to cause it to wear out. As a matter of fact, all the other guns are protected with plastic sheathing over metal parts. What does wear out, like I said, is the tip itself. So if you can see this tip, this started off as a 9mm tip and ended up being 10.5 at this opening right now. And if you can see, about 1/2 inch from the exit, it started to wear away the sidewall. And the reason that it's worn away the sidewall on this tip is because the sidewall at the time, I had it set to, looks like 2. So I had a wall thickness of 2. So if you look real close, you can see that there's 2 lines and then it starts the little zigzag pattern for the ink fill. So this has a wall thickness of 2. So 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside. So after it wore through 2 layers of these lines, and then it started to wear into the ink fill portion, which is that part at the end there that you see. This part right in there. To remedy that issue, all you have to do is increase your number of lines of the wall thickness. So right now what I'm running is a wall thickness of 8. So it's going to do 8 on each side. So 8 on the outside, 8 on the inside. Since this is less than 8 combined, it's essentially a solid piece. And this whole vapor blast tip is solid. When you look at it through the slicer, you go ahead and you build it up using a 8 line wall count. It's a solid piece all the way up. So as this thing wears out, it's just going to get bigger, but it will never develop the condition of that first tip. And then what I did is I carried that same design over to the body of the new Vapor Blast version 3 guns. So this tip weighs in at, oops, scroll that out, comes in at 18 grams. So this thing will cost you 18 grams of filament to print, and that works out to be about 40 cents. So you can replace your tip for 40 cents. And this tip, the original tip that I told you wore through, this was after about just under 4 weeks of blasting. So right at about 4 weeks, about a day after, I started to notice that this thing, the spray pattern was different. And that was because it wore away the inner wall, and some of the media was starting to cause extra turbulence as it was exiting the tip. The new Vapor Blast guns using the wall thickness of 8, see this one here, all right, with the rubber O-ring and the collar. Comes in at 100 grams. So 100 grams versus 400 grams for the eBay gun versus 457 grams for the Eastwood gun. So it's a quarter of the weight. It has the right entry angles for the hoses. Right, I'm not battling the hoses. I can hold it like this. I can hold it like this. I can hold it back here if I want. I can choke up on it. But once I put the tip in here, where's my tip? Once I put my tip in here and assemble it, you can see that I can choke up on it if I want to use it like a pencil. I can use this tip to stick down in something. If I'm having a hard time getting the body of the gun in that position, I can just stick the tip down in there. And in the future, what I plan to do is have a tip with a slight curve on it. That way, if I need to reach into an area where I just can't get the right angle, I can always swivel that tip around and get at whatever I need to get at. So all these improvements are coming. Guys, I did some testing with these different air orifices in here. And what I found is the minimum air orifice that can be used with this design is 3 millimeter. Anything below 3 millimeter and performance just takes a nosedive. So I don't recommend anything less than 3 millimeter. The 3 millimeter one, you can use the 8 millimeter tips, the 9 millimeter tip, and the 10 millimeter tip without any issue. The compressor will use 50% less air, like I said earlier. And you'll still get very good performance out of it. Now, I did find a source for the O-rings. I'll go ahead and I'll link to that source in the description. To put this O-ring in the freshly printed gun, all you need to do is, so you have your new nozzle, it just came off the printer. what I suggest that you do is grab a little sandpaper and sand this inside bore just to get any loose fibers or filament that may be strung along the edge out of there. And once you get it out, all you need to do is put your O-ring in there, get it started, and then you can use the tip to drive it in. So just work it side to side, work it side to side, till you drive it all the way down in the bore. So that's it right there. So if you look down in there, it's all the way down there. You can verify by sticking your finger in there and checking it. But that gets it down in the bore. And that's it. Guys, for all of you that have already purchased the version 3 Vapor Blast gun, I'm going to go ahead and update the file to include the one with the 3mm orifice, so you'll get both. For those of you with smaller compressors, here you go. Now you have a Vapor Blast gun that will work on your smaller compressor. Not too small, but smaller. Unfortunately, there's just no way, at least that I found yet, to be able to effectively vapor blast without a lot of frustration using a 2 horsepower air compressor with a 20-gallon tank. It's just, for me, I think that's really too small. That's how I started, honestly. And while you can vapor blast a little bit, you're not vapor blasting for very long. You're vapor blasting for seconds, as opposed to all day with the right size compressor. All right, guys, if you like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notification bells. That way you guys know when I put out more content. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this one. And God bless. See you guys next time.